What turns a dead tractor into a living legend? Not marketing, not nostalgia, a closed-center hydraulic heart, a variable speed synchro-range brain, and bones of iron that refuse to bend. The John Deere 4020 carried farms through the 1960s, and then survived the digital era that tried to sideline it. In the next minutes, we'll map the exact components that made it immortal and show how 2023 right-to-repair concessions helped owners revive machines that still outpull software-locked heirs. If you've ever wondered where reliability actually lives, this is the teardown you've been waiting for. Why would a company famous for two-cylinder Johnny Poppers gamble its identity on a 4- and 6-cylinder leap in a single generation? Because the old heartbeat, beloved as it was, had reached the limit of what its architecture could bear. The farms were getting larger. Implements were getting heavier. The rhythm that once defined a brand was now a bottleneck. To move forward, Deere would have to silence the thump and let a new cadence take over. Inside Dallas in 1960, Deere staged its answer. Dealers arrived by the thousands to see a line that shared a spine, not a surname. 1010, 2010, 3010, and the 4010. In long, disciplined rows, they stood like a steel genealogy. Compact to large, gasoline to diesel, row crop to standard. Hoods ran lower, operator platforms sat cleaner. Levers rose where the hand wanted them to be. The message was physical before it was spoken. This was a new generation, built for brute strength but tuned for control. Loyal farmers heard more than a mechanical change. They heard the end of a familiar sound. Two pistons had set the tempo for decades, a metronome across fence rows and seasons. Dealers sensed the upheaval beneath the sheet metal. New parts inventories, new tools, new training. Competitors read the moment and wagered on disruption. If Deere stumbled, the confidence built on that thump would fracture. The 4010 answered with numbers that mattered in the dirt. Tests put it in the mid-80s horsepower range, yet it carried less mass than old rivals in the same work. Power climbed while weight stayed disciplined. That ratio paid off at the drawbar. More traction, less sink. Visibility improved because the nose dropped and the operator sat higher. Daily service met human scale. Filters on the edge, panels that surrendered without a fight, linkages you could trace with your eyes. The station itself moved from perch to command post, with a seat that absorbed punishment and controls that made long hours feel shorter. The scale of the launch signaled more than optimism. Deere had pre-produced inventory and turned a product unveiling into a logistics exercise. A quiet flex that said the line was not a prototype. It was ready. Dealers did not just hear a promise. They saw distribution muscle, parts channels, and training lanes already carved. The gamble looked less like a roll of the dice and more like a planned crossing. Acceptance showed up where it counts, in share, not slogans. In 1959, Deere held 23%. By 1964, as the successor arrived, that number climbed toward 34%. The shift was not a spike. It was a handoff from doubt to adoption, a season-by-season verdict that these tractors worked. Fields do not grade on curves. They reward what hooks up, pulls straight, and starts tomorrow. Then the 4020 took that foundation and tightened the bolts. More horsepower came without a penalty in manners. Hydraulics grew stronger, with reserves that made multiple tasks behave as one system. Ergonomics advanced from adequate to deliberate. Control throws shortened, pedal effort dropped, sightlines sharpened. It did not erase the 10 series. It digested the lessons and returned them as muscle memory in steel. The sound changed, and that mattered. The old twins beat like a drum you could count. Inline power smoothed the torque. The note became a hum that carried longer under load. Where some heard loss, operators learned a different signal. Less shock, more endurance. Sound became a proxy for how far the machine could go before asking for relief. Efficiency wore a new voice. So the old heart did not stop so much as it was transplanted into a stronger frame. Heritage moved from cylinder count to field performance. The result was a living continuity. Legacy redefined by what the work demanded, not by what the engine announced. That is how a brand crosses a chasm without losing the road behind it. But the real secret lies in how the four 020's organs, its transmission and its hydraulics, made a bigger body feel nimble, turning raw power into precise motion and letting the operator command the field like a measured instrument. But before we move on, I would like you to subscribe the channel and like the video. How do you make a 95 horsepower tractor move like it can read the field before it sees it? You give it a brain that selects force with finesse and arteries that never run dry. On the 4020, that meant synchro range directing torque like a seasoned foreman and a closed center hydraulic pump holding pressure in reserve. Ready the moment a lever twitched. The synchro range worked as a gear set with intent. Operators didn't chase speed, they chose it. Ratios sat where work lived. Tillage creep, haying stride, road pace. So you matched load without punishing the driveline. Within ranges, shifts flowed with rhythm. Across ranges, the system allowed movement on the roll within sensible limits, saving momentum that older gearboxes squandered. Instead of a stall and restart dance, the 4020 glided through changing conditions, measuring traction with speed rather than sacrificing it to hesitation. Older transmissions demanded a bargain no one liked. To keep pace, you grabbed too tall a gear and forced the engine to lug, or you settled for a slower cog and watched time bleed away. The 4020 broke that habit. Its logic linked engine torque, ground speed, and traction into a single decision, made from the seat, without a fight. It was the difference between surviving a hill and working through it. Hydraulics told the same story with pressure instead of teeth. Open center systems delivered flow only as valves opened, so two demands collided and both lost. Deere's closed center design kept pressure alive even at rest. The pump stood at the ready, building and holding a set pressure and sending flow on demand. One function didn't starve another, because the reserve wasn't in the line. It was in the pump, waiting like a loaded spring. That changed the daily script. With a loader on the front, lift came up clean while steering stayed exact. No wandering nose, no hunting wheel. On planting days, a remote cylinder cycled while markers, fans, or lift circuits shared the same supply without drama. Hitch control reacted predictably because the system didn't sag when another circuit woke up. Implements behaved like parts of one machine, not strangers fighting over a single valve. Horsepower to weight finally did more than warm a dyno. It turned into traction you could trust and implement control you could feel. Because ground speed could land exactly where the soil wanted it, the tires kept bite without clawing. Because hydraulic response matched the hand, depth control and lift height held steady, pass after pass. The numbers never lived alone. They traveled through gears and galleries that made them matter in dirt. From the operator's station, the tractor felt coordinated. Clear sight lines over a lower nose cut down on guesswork. A better seat took the edge off long hours, so decisions stayed sharp. Levers felt a hand in a pattern that made sense with the synchro range's rhythm and the hydraulic's instant response. You moved a control, and the machine answered. Not in a lurch, but in a measured push, as if the chassis had a sense for what came next. Field edges and headlands laid out the proof. Coming off the row, a quick range shift held momentum without spinning. The closed center pump kept steering crisp as the loader eased down, so the turn landed on the line every time. In rough ground, the gearbox allowed slight speed trims to sit on top of the torque curve, keeping the engine in its comfort while draft stayed even. The tractor read conditions because the systems let the operator write the sentence before the punctuation. Together, brain and arteries let the 4020 act larger than its rating and kinder than its mass suggests. It didn't need theatrics. It needed coordination. Mechanical logic in the transmission, hydraulic readiness in the pump, and human-centered controls in the seat made power feel deliberate instead of blunt. The finesse lasted because those choices lived in steel, springs, and spools. Attention shifted to the skeleton and muscle, the iron that made that finesse last half a century. What keeps a 50-year-old machine earning its keep when newer models stall behind passwords? The answer sits in steel. The 4020's bones were cast and welded for seasons without mercy, and its architecture welcomed the wrench. Where newer machines can blink out behind an error code, this one stands up, asks for oil, and goes back to work. Under its sheet metal, the chassis carried load like a bridge. Main housings were thick, axle housings were stout, and the front end took shocks without twisting the spine. The rear axles bore torque with room to spare, and wheel centers clamped with authority. Components lined up where hands could reach them. Linkages ran mechanical, direct, and honest. Each piece signaled a design philosophy. Build the skeleton heavy, keep the joints simple, and make the organs serviceable. Across modern fields, software can call time out on a harvest. A sensor reads an edge case and trips a lock. A dashboard throws a code that means nothing without a laptop and a license. The parts arrive late, or the tool is proprietary, or the update waits behind a password. The engine runs, but the machine stops. In that gap, a season can slip. The 4020's service logic cut through that risk. Fuel and oil filters sat in plain reach. The hydraulic pump, the lifeblood of its closed center system, offered clean service points. You could trace a lever to a valve to a line to a cylinder, and prove it with a gauge. A simple pressure check told the truth. Is the pump building pressure? Is the priority valve holding? Is the circuit leaking? Mechanical linkages spoke a language that any careful hand could read. A shift arrived in 2023 that nodded toward this older ethic. Deere agreed to let owners and independent shops access diagnostic software, manuals, and tools. It marked a concession to right-to-repair pressure and an admission that stewardship lives on the farm as much as in the dealer bay. The move did not change the 4020, but it echoed the philosophy that kept it alive. Give the user the means to mend. Around these tractors, a revival economy keeps the lights on. Salvage yards pull clean housings, straight shafts, usable pumps. Machine shops true worn bores, grind valves, rebuild sleeves. Aftermarket suppliers deliver gaskets, seals, hoses, and wear parts in steady flow. Costs stay within reach because the parts fit, the processes are known, and the labor returns a machine that still earns. The marketplace learned the rhythm of these rebuilds and matched it piece by piece. Knowledge moves with the parts. Green Magazine and the Enthusiast Network carry torque specs, service sequences, and troubleshooting trees that reduce guesswork. Articles walk through pump testing, detent repair, draft control adjustments, and electrical basics. Owners trade diagrams and measurements that anchor decisions to facts. Community becomes a tool. No drama, just procedures, numbered steps, and repeatable results. A restoration arc often starts with silence in the hydraulics. The loader won't lift, the steering goes heavy, the hitch hangs limp. Gauges tell the story. Low standby pressure points to a tired, pressure-compensated pump. The pump comes off the nose, a bench test confirms the miss, and a rebuild or replacement brings the heartbeat back. Shifting still feels vague, so attention turns to the synchro range. Detents have rounded. Springs and balls no longer hold gears with authority. The cover comes off, wear shows itself, and fresh detents lock the pattern back into place. Fluid cycle, filters prime, air purges out of the lines. The engine idles, pressure rises, levers answer. The tractor lifts, steers, hitches, and holds. Fieldwork resumes. Farmers coax the giant back to life, not with firmware, but with gauges, wrenches, and shared knowledge. The fix lived in metal, measurements, and patience. Each repair doubled as a lesson and a vote for machines that meet you halfway. That's it for today. Click on the video to watch the next gem.